He wants to make American dream possible again.
Who on earth is she talking about? It's Friday, September 27th. I'm Jane Coaston, and this is What a Day, the show where we are trend forecasting that this season's must-have accessory is a federally indicted mayor. It's the roaring 20s, baby! Corruption is back. On today's show, Volodymyr Zelenskyy visits the White House, plus the WNBA is heating up, and so are the weirdos using it for culture war stupidity. But first, on Thursday, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Damian Williams, announced that New York City Mayor Eric Adams has been charged on a litany of corruption and illegal campaign finance charges, making him the first sitting New York City mayor to be charged with a crime. Which, thinking about the lengthy history of New York City, is kind of surprising to me.
Today we are announcing campaign finance, bribery, and conspiracy charges against Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City. As the indictment alleges, Mayor Adams engaged in a long-running conspiracy in which he solicited and knowingly accepted illegal campaign contributions from foreign donors and corporations.
After the indictment was announced by Williams, the mayor's home, Gracie Mansion, was raided by federal agents and his phone was taken, part of an effort to make sure no evidence gets deleted. This was actually the second time this has happened. Back in 2023, Adams' phone was taken by federal authorities and the home of his chief fundraiser was raided. Now, a thing about me is that I low-key love crimes. Not committing them, reading about them. So I read the entire indictment, which details allegations showing that since 2014, years before he was elected mayor, when he was serving as Brooklyn Borough president, Eric Adams was accepting, quote, improper valuable benefits from foreign business people, including at least one Turkish government official. Allegedly, through those connections, he flew Turkish Airlines for free dozens of times, even on a trip from New York to Paris, with a quick stop in Istanbul, of course. And in case you were wondering, no, you cannot accept free Turkish airline tickets and a heavily discounted stay at the St. Regis Istanbul from Turkey in exchange for pressuring the New York Fire Department to overlook safety concerns and grant the Turkish consulate a building permit. In response to the indictment, Adams has decided to go with the time-tested strategy of argue this is all a big effort by the haters. If that's the case, congrats to the haters. The haters are doing an amazing job.
The actions that have unfolded over the last 10 months, the leaks, the commentary, the demonizing, this did not surprise us that we reached this day. And I ask New Yorkers to wait to hear our defense before making any judgments.
The indictment alleges that Adams was well aware that what he was doing was illegal, and he created fake paper trails to cover up his actions. And in some cases, the feds say he tried to conceal the benefits he'd received the old-fashioned way, deleting text messages and asking his staffers to delete texts they sent him. But not all of those texts got deleted, including some between Adams' staffers that show they knew trying to get foreign contributions for his mayoral campaign was illegal, but they were just going to do it anyway. One of those staffers allegedly deleted her text messages in the bathroom during a break from speaking with the FBI. Don't do that. Despite Adams and his staffers being allegedly very bad at committing crimes, the mayor's claims of innocence seem to be working on one New Yorker with some experience with the legal process, Donald Trump.
I will say this. I watched about a year ago when he talked about how the illegal migrants are hurting our city and the federal government should pay us and we shouldn't have to take them. And I said, you know what? He'll be indicted within a year. And I was exactly right, because that's what we have. We have people that use the Justice Department and the FBI at levels that have never been seen before.
Two things here. Personally, I think it's pretty funny that the law and order president has decided that the law is actually only for people who don't like him. Also, I don't think that he started doing crimes, allegedly, with the Turkish government just a year ago, according to all of the evidence. So the lawfare argument, it's not really working for me. Multiple prominent Democrats have asked Adams to resign, including several candidates vying for the mayor's office next year. But Adams has stood firm and refused to resign from office. Because, let's admit it, it's way more difficult to get cheap flights to Istanbul if you're not the mayor of New York City. Good news for the people of New York, though. While your mayor is facing a federal indictment, your chief of police and chancellor of public schools have resigned, and every 4 days I have to hear about how your subways aren't working, your WNBA team, very, very good. In fact, the New York Liberty are in the semifinals of the WNBA playoffs, alongside the Las Vegas Aces, the Minnesota Lynx, and the Connecticut Sun. This year's games are already the most watched playoffs in league history, and they're capping a record season for the league, which saw its viewership more than double with the help of some big-name rookies like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and Cameron Brink. But regrettably, thinly guised racism and culture war nonsense are making their presence felt this playoffs too. And frankly, it's been there all season. So to talk about all of that, I had my good friend Erin Ryan, host of Crooked Media's Hysteria podcast, join me to chat. Erin, I asked you to come here to talk about childcare, but we actually got so excited talking about the WNBA that we just decided to pivot.
Yes, we decided to pivot. Okay, the WNBA is so good right now, but it's not just about sports. It's about so much more than sports. But before we get into that, we've got games this weekend, semifinal games of the WNBA. The Aces and the Liberty, oh my God, are playing.
That's gonna be crazy.
The Aces and the Liberty play first on Sunday, the 29th, and then after that, the Sun and the Lynx play each other. It is going to be an amazing day of basketball, and then the second game is on Tuesday, and the third game is on Friday. The players are so good. They play their asses off. They're incredible. Now, on Wednesday, the Indiana Fever, which is Caitlin Clark's team, was eliminated by the Connecticut Sun, which is Alyssa Thomas's team. So now we're going to get to the negative part of what I was going to say. Great basketball, super fun, so many fans. You can watch it on TV. Amazing, amazing, amazing. But along with that, there has been some trash dragged in. There has been some trash dragged in. And a lot of them, it appears, are using Caitlin Clark as a way for them to kind of funnel their racism at other players in the WNBA. Now, at the Connecticut Sun Indiana Fever game this week, there was a woman there wearing a shirt that said "ban nails." Did you see these?
Yeah, I did.
Pictures?
I did. And it's a reference to a thing that took place. There was a player who appeared to poke Caitlin Clark in the eye.
Yes.
Now,
but it was an accident.
It was a total accident. And to everyone on the court's credit, which is something I do want to get to, to everyone on the court's credit, they were like, total accident, happens, basketball, it's a thing. Caitlin Clark herself was like, this is total, everything's fine, and I'm fine.
And Clark can be a bit of a hothead too.
This is how,
if it was not an accident, Caitlin Clark would have been mad.
There are so many people who have, used to use internet parlance, have come into like, quote unquote, white knight for Caitlin Clark, basically being like, and we've seen this before, we've seen this all season, that like a hard foul on Caitlin Clark renders that player get so much abuse, so much racist invective. People talking about like, oh, she should be charged with assault, which one proves you've just never watched basketball before.
Not
like,
women's basketball.
No. And like not sports, because what we're getting now is people who don't give a shit about sports.
Yeah.
What they want to do is culture war bullshit.
And they're using Caitlin Clark.
And they're using Caitlin Clark, who, to her credit, is a fantastic player. And you see this across sports, but a lot of times in women's sports, in which people come in and are like, I'm going to take my culture war bullshit and like wield it in a sport that has existed for a long time, has an existing fan base, that is a real sport. Like the people complaining about hard fouls, I'm like, have you ever watched the NBA? Because like, I've watched Kevin Durant get knocked into a scorer's table before. Like, this is it's a real sport, even when women are playing it.
It's exactly correct. And it's a very physical sport. And I think there has been a little bit of tension because as all these new fans have come in, there are people who have been like grinding for a decade. You know, Dana Taurasi, who's 42 years old, 42 years old. Probably her career ended the other night with her team, the Mercury's loss. But you know, she's been playing for so long, and the amount of attention she's getting now is larger because of this freshman class, which involved Caitlin Clark, which involved Angel Reese, which involved Cameron Brink, who got injured.
Yeah, before she tore her ACL, because knees are bad.
Is she going to be back?
She's going to be back.
Okay, she better be back. But regardless, so what happened is now the WNBA gets all this new attention, and these people who have been working really hard and have this place where it's just a celebration of like female excellence, where it's very LGBTQ friendly, where Black women dominate the game, has suddenly become all about this white woman. And Caitlin Clark cannot help the fact that she's white. And Caitlin Clark clearly just wants to play basketball. She is clearly so annoyed with all the discourse. And I'm just going to say this. I think that the racist invective that Alyssa Thomas said was being hurled at her and her teammates in her post-game interview after they beat the Fever. That is got to stop.
We've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media, and there's no place for it.
And I really hope that after the postseason is over and after a champion has been crowned, and I hope it's the Lynx, I hope that Caitlin Clark decides to switch up her communication strategy a little bit, come out really hard against the fact that people are using her as like a vehicle for their racism, even though she herself probably wants nothing to do with it.
Right. And we see this all the time in sports in which the athletes involved, because let's keep in mind, like, Caitlin Clark has been playing basketball her entire life. She had to start out on a boys team because she was too good. And like, you know, when she was at Iowa, obviously a standout, but it's not like, I know it sounds like a simple thing, but like, she's been playing with Black players her entire life. She is currently. And for people to use her as part of this invective against Black women specifically, against Black women, and let's just say it, against Black women often who are more masculine presenting. Black women.
I think even now Carrington,
Yeah.
Dejani Carrington, who was the target of the like ban nails thing, who is also an amazing player.
Right.
Love her. Hyper feminine.
Yeah, hyper feminine.
Like, there's
but also hyper feminine in a way that is very Black.
Yes.
And I think that there's a way in which people want to culture war their way through sports. And so the situation seems to be like, I think it's great that more people are going to games. You even see this. I saw that the University of Iowa, even without Caitlin Clark, has sold out all of their games for this upcoming women's basketball
They're not
season.
even going to have the same coach this year.
They don't.
New coach, new program.
Basically new program, and yet they have built that in. And like, I think it's really great that people are paying attention. But I also think that one thing that I'm obsessed with is that there's an idea that men are people and women are women. And so even when we talk about like men's sports, women's sports, there's an idea of like, oh, we need to, you know, protect specific women, or women need to play in a specific way. And I'm like, no, they're people. Women fight. Women fight dirty. Like, it's just, I'm so glad you're here to talk about this because it's such an exciting moment for the sport. But I also am just like so annoyed by how this conversation turns out.
I also think, you know, and not to have this isn't really a sports conversation. This is more about like culture war tries to find cracks anywhere it can. And like the people that really could not care less before there was an opportunity for them to air
and
their
I don't
grievances.
think really care now.
No. These are the same people that would be like, shut up and dribble. If Caitlin Clark were to come out, which I still think she should. It's her life. She can do whatever she wants, whatever. She's still a great basketball player. They would be the same people that if, you know, a Rickea Jackson came out and like decided to endorse Kamala Harris, would be like, shut up, stick to sports. But yet when they go to sports games, they're not there for the sports. They're there to exactly not stick to sports. And I wish that fans, when they come to sports games and they support a team, they're not there for like the wrong reasons.
Right.
And
be there to watch sports. But with that said, Erin, Minnesota Lynx, are they your title pick?
No, they're not my title pick. I actually think the Aces are looking pretty unbeatable. But all four of the final teams that are in the tournament, I am like, there's reasons to love all of them. So it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter how much you're into sports or not. Like if you have ever turned on like an NCAA Final Four game or an NBA finals game or whatever, and you've enjoyed yourself, the WNBA is so good right now, and it's so fun to watch. And I really do love the Aces. Like Asia Wilson is just, she's just
iconic.
Iconic. It's so fun to watch.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That was my conversation with Erin Ryan, host of Crooked's Hysteria and the weekend edition of What a Day. Like we mentioned, we had originally planned to talk to Erin about how the Harris and Trump campaigns are talking about the cost of childcare, and we are still doing that. She'll be back next week for that conversation ahead of Tuesday's vice presidential debate. We'll get to some of the news in a moment, but if you like the show, make sure to subscribe and share with your friends. And now, the news.
Today we have a new support package, $7.9 billion. This will be a great help, and I raised with President Biden the plan of victory.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy met with President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris on Thursday. Ahead of the meetings, Biden announced he authorized billions of dollars to send spare weapons to Ukraine. And, for the first time, he's also sending long-range munitions. In a joint press conference with President Zelenskyy, Vice President Kamala Harris echoed President Biden's support for Ukraine.
Putin started this war, and he could end it tomorrow if he simply withdrew his troops from Ukraine's sovereign territory. Of course, he has demonstrated no intention of doing that. Instead, he continues to assault civilian infrastructure and terrorize the people of Ukraine.
Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump is taking a much different tone when it comes to Ukraine, saying things like this on Wednesday during a campaign stop in North Carolina.
Ukraine is gone. It's not Ukraine anymore. You can never replace those cities and towns, and you can never replace the dead people, so many dead people. Any deal, even the worst deal, would have been better than what we have right now.
Note to Donald Trump, Ukraine, still there. Trump said on Thursday he will meet with Zelenskyy this morning. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is also in the United States for the UN General Assembly in New York City, where he is scheduled to speak today. Fighting continues between Israel's forces and the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. The United States and several other nations, including France, Japan, and Qatar, are trying to put an end to the conflict and released a joint statement on Wednesday night calling for an immediate 21-day ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre responding to a question at a press briefing on Thursday about the Lebanese death toll, which the country's health officials say is more than 600 people, including dozens of women and children.
It is intolerable what's going on right now. It cannot continue, and it's not good for either side. It is just not. This is why we're trying to get to a diplomatic solution here. And you mentioned children and women. Nobody wants to see that. We don't want to see that.
But Israeli officials have responded defiantly to the calls for a ceasefire. After landing in New York Thursday morning, Netanyahu spoke with reporters on the tarmac in Hebrew. The prime minister said that Israel will, quote, continue to hit Hezbollah with all our might.
We urge everyone who is watching at this very moment to take this storm very seriously, and please follow the guidance of your local officials. And President Biden and I, of course, will continue to work closely with state and local officials to ensure that everyone is safe and to protect communities before, during, and after the storm.
At a White House event Thursday, Vice President Kamala Harris warned Americans about Hurricane Helene. The hurricane made landfall along Florida's Gulf Coast on Thursday night. Helene had already brought heavy rain across the southeast before making landfall. Several alarming videos shared Thursday on Twitter showed cars continuing to drive over a bridge in Tampa Bay despite intense flooding. Thankfully, the bridge was officially closed before 4 p.m. Eastern. Speaking at a White House press briefing on Thursday, FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell warned that the storm's harmful effects are likely to extend well beyond Florida.
The water is what kills people. And so we need to really look at where this storm surge is going to be in Florida. But Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and those Appalachians, they're going to have up to 20 inches of rain in an area that can have significant flash flooding. And that is really life-threatening.
To all of our listeners in the affected areas, please stay safe and stay out of harm's way. And that's the news. Fox and Friends aired Melania Trump's first interview in over 2 years on Thursday with Ainsley Earhardt. And it was a masterclass in two things: a journalist coddling a source, and a person describing someone I thought I knew pretty well in a way I have never heard in my life.
What did it look like when you walked back in your house that had been raided? I saw unpleasant stuff that nobody wants to see it. And you get angry because nobody should be putting up with that kind of stuff.
Nobody should be putting up with that kind of stuff? Even people who are hoarding classified documents in their private residence? In their bathroom, no less? Melania, believe me, many people who do way, 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 way less than that do in fact have to put up with that kind of stuff. While Ainsley held her hand through softball questions, Melania did everything she could to portray her husband, Donald Trump, a person who has been a part of our lives, non-consensually, for like 9 years now, as nothing more than a well-meaning nice guy who just wants to make the world a better place.
All he wants to, as he says, make America great again. He wants to make this country prosperous, safe for everybody. He wants to make American dream possible again.
Who on earth is she talking about? Like, who is this person she is describing? Look, I'm glad she likes her husband, but liking your husband is like the lowest possible bar for marriage. I am pretty sure that many people love their spouses and believe in their ability to do things, but I don't have to vote for anyone on that basis. Melania did have one criticism of her husband, about one of his favorite activities, actually.
Maybe some, strong tweets, but everything else great for this country.
Besides the mass deportations and Project 2025's efforts to make transgender people's existence illegal, and the sexual assault allegations and the benefits to billionaires and the efforts to strip environmental protections and the lying, the omnipresent lying, the true passion he seems to show for reveling in the pain of others, and the total inability to say a complete sentence while calling the vice president of the United States stupid and arguing that she, quote, turned black, and the fact that literally every single person he's endorsed is the worst person I have ever heard of in my entire life. Everything else, great for this country. That's all for today. If you like the show, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, stay safe from Hurricane Helene, and tell your friends to listen. And if you're into reading and not just the laundry list of crimes and the Eric Adams indictment like me, What A Day is also a nightly newsletter. Check it out and subscribe at crooked.com/subscribe. I'm Jane Coaston. And let's just let the rats run New York City. They've never been indicted.